I usually love breaking down complex ideas to empower you, to give you some sense of mastery over the world. But I have to be honest, the structures we're examining today, they offer absolutely no sanctuary. Welcome to this explainer. Today we're opening up the architectures of nihilism of Faustian Void. I've spent days literally poring over these texts, and their rigid logic is just suffocating. We are definitely not looking at some grand timeline of human progress today. No, we're looking at a timeline of looming, inevitable cosmic negation. So let's begin our descent.
Think about it for a second. Are your passionate choices, your grand ambitions, actually yours? Well, according to the sources we're diving into, the answer is agonizingly simple. No, not at all. This is what we call the illusion of agency. We all cling to this comforting idea of free will, right? But it's exposed here as a complete cosmic delusion. You might feel fiercely independent, yet you remain entirely enslaved to a predetermined script, and the universe's only purpose for you? Entertainment.
And right here, we witness a terrifying philosophical collision, a sort of Faustian lore fusion. We take the ancient 1587 Faust book, that classic cautionary tale of selling your soul for forbidden knowledge, and we slam it right into Nietzsche's Übermensch, this modern drive to evolve and completely overcome ourselves. But here's the catch. Ascending through these desperate bargains actually requires total spiritual corruption. Our modern ambition to transcend our limits, it doesn't lead to freedom at all. Actually, it leads straight back to ancient inevitable decay.
So you're probably wondering, what exactly is pulling those cosmic puppet strings? The answer is what the philosopher Schopenhauer called Wille zum Leben, the will to live. But do me a favor and strip away any noble ideas of survival or human spirit you might be holding on to. This metaphysical volitionism simply means the universe is a blind, irrational, and completely insatiable engine of pure appetite. It doesn't care about your legacy or your triumphs any more than a wood chipper cares about a branch. It's just a hungry mechanism ensuring that absolutely everything we build is temporary.
Faced with this blind, hungry universe, what do we naturally do? We panic, obviously. And then we frantically build intellectual walls to hide behind. It's the trap of intellectual defense. Step 1, we deploy hyperanalysis, basically trying to think our way out of the void so we don't just freeze in terror. Step 2, our own minds turn against us. The superego becomes this aggressive tribunal, using cold logic to prosecute our every single instinct. And finally, the trap springs. We realize our hyper-rationality hasn't built a pathway to freedom at all. It has meticulously constructed our own prison.
Intellectual dogma creates rigid, artificial structures that disconnect human consciousness from vital creative instincts. It reads like a jagged German expressionist woodcut, doesn't it? This is the core critique of logocentrist dogma, our total obsession with logic and reason above all else. In our desperate attempt to impose order on a chaotic universe, we end up severing ourselves from the only vital, creative instincts we actually have.
Which, naturally, leads us to the sheer exhaustion of epistemological nihilism. It's this agonizing realization that human reason is fundamentally incapable of accessing absolute truth. All our grand academic pursuits, all these neat systems of logic I usually love to organize and explain to you, they're completely blind. We're really just pacing back and forth inside the intellectual prisons we built to hide from the void, whispering logical fallacies to ourselves in the dark. Okay, let's unmask the actual architects of this trap. The texts describe a triumvirate of metaphysical forces. First, there's the wit. Think of it as a cold, inquisitorial jester that uses your own rationality against you, proving your logic is futile and turning your intellect into a literal cage. Second, the hunger. This cosmic entity thrives on the spiritual exhaustion that sets in when our pursuits of power inevitably fail. And finally, the small. This is the physical manifestation of our repressed trauma, the buried sorrow we just completely refuse to look at. Together, these three obsessively collaborate to strip away every single defense you have.
Let's look a little closer at the handiwork of the hunger, because when we pursue forbidden or absolute knowledge, we don't magically become gods. We just achieve systemic spiritual bankruptcy. This obsession actually awakens the repressed id, this psychological shadow. And here, it stops being just some abstract Freudian concept and becomes a literal parasitic force. It feeds on the unexamined ugliness humanity tries so desperately to hide.
And what exactly happens when that repressed trauma, the small, is fully awakened? Well, it begins as a microscopic shadow anchored to your spine. But it constantly feeds on all that unexamined reality until it grows. It grows to exactly 12 feet. 12 feet of solid, suffocating stone.
That 12-foot stone gargoyle is what Nietzschean philosophy calls the spirit of gravity. It is a monolith of pure existential dread, grown directly from the dumping ground of the human ego. In your day-to-day modern life, this doesn't look like a literal monster, right? It looks like paralysis. It's that crushing, physical weight you feel when you suddenly realize the universe is static and absolutely everything you do is ultimately meaningless.
There is an inescapable arc to this psychological decay. We start by building our rigid intellectual walls, our dogma. But our ambition, eventually, inevitably, collapses under the weight of those universal mechanisms, trapping us in what they call existential stasis. Then comes the fatal blow of existential determinism. This is the horrifying realization that your actions are totally inconsequential against an overarching, looming timeline of cosmic negation. Finally, this all bleeds into the end state, the ink blot negation.
The transition from stasis to absolute negation is violent. The texts use the German concept of Untergang, meaning a total destruction or descent. This is the exact agonizing moment you are completely shattered by objective reality. It is the profound psychological trauma that hits you when your comforting illusions are violently stripped away, leaving you with the raw truth deep in your bones. And that truth is, you do not matter.
Human efforts to project personal meaning onto the cosmos result in a tragic, comic pantomime. It's almost funny, in a bleak, cynical sort of way. All our grand human structures, our desperate attempts to leave a legacy, it's pure material and moral reductionism. We are just actors on a stage, pantomiming importance, completely unaware that the theater itself has already caught fire and is crumbling into dust all around us.
And so we arrive at the core philosophical principle, the final echoing truth of this explainer. The baseline is oblivion. Dominance belongs only to the absolute void. Everything we build, everything we learn, everything we love, it is all just a temporary, agonizing interruption of this baseline.
This is exactly what awaits at the end of the arc. The ink blot negation. Like a black stain spreading across a page, it just covers everything. Once the wit has stripped your intellectual sanctuaries and the hunger has bankrupted your spirit, you collapse. Total, permanent oblivion is the default state, and it is the ultimate destination of all existence. The only real solace here is that in this negation, the cosmic puppet strings are finally cut. The performance is over. The erasure is permanent.
So as the void approaches and the ink blot negation arrives to consume your temporary legacy, I want you to ask yourself this. What was the true cost of your desperate bargain? What did you actually sacrifice to the triumvirate, just to pretend for a fleeting moment that you were in control?